have your neighbor, something hurts, they'll call you. You have a friend, something hurts, they'll call you. And you're looked up as like you've got it all together. And you know what? It's okay to say, you know what? I am taking 30 minutes for myself. And that's it. It's okay to say, you know what? I can use some help. It doesn't mean you're weak, because see, that's the meaning we assign for I need help. That means I can't do it by myself. That means I'm dependent. That means whatever other meaning you want to assign to that. What if you change the story and say, I need help? That's great. I'm recognizing that because I'm growing. It's not that I'm independent. I'm willing to be open-minded and curious to evolve into the next version of myself, to return to who I am, to take off the mask.
This podcast is produced by Concierge Medicine Today, LLC. All rights reserved. Concierge Medicine Today, or CMT, was founded in 2007 and serves as the industry's trade publication and annual medical conference organizer. Please note, the information shared on this podcast and across all CMT platforms is intended for general informational purposes only and may contain errors or omissions. Nothing in this podcast nor across CMT platforms constitutes medical, financial, legal, nor professional advice, and CMT is not liable for any inaccuracies. CMT encourages listeners to conduct their own research and consult trusted advisors before taking any action based on the content presented. No mention, interview, or link should be considered an endorsement. This content is primarily intended for a healthcare audience and may not apply to all listeners. Thanks for tuning in.
Well, good morning or good evening, Docpreneur Nation. You're listening to Concierge Medicine Today's Docpreneur Leadership Podcast. And today we have a returning guest, Maria Angelova. And before we get into what Maria is doing, let's talk about the mindset that healthcare forgot. Because as she's about to unpack and explain in what she does throughout the year, there's an unspoken belief that's woven very deeply into healthcare, and one that most physicians, those may be listening and those may be tuning in or charting on their, at midnight right now, one that most physicians didn't choose, but you still carry. And that belief is that you're still tired, but you're committed. You're still overwhelmed, and you think you're doing it all right. And if you're struggling, you just work harder and push the boundaries further. And somewhere along the way, healthcare, your medical instructors, taught generations of physicians how to care for everyone else, but without ever teaching you how to care for yourself. But here's the kicker: without guilt. And so today we're going to talk with Maria about the mindset that medicine forgot. It's kind of this quiet erosion that happens when caring for patients slowly turns it into losing yourself. And so, Maria, welcome to the Docpreneur Leadership Podcast.
Thank you, Michael. I am so excited to be here. As always, you're awesome. And I love having deep conversations with you and appreciate the opportunity to talk about this topic, which I'm so passionate about.
Well, tell us a little bit about what you've been doing this past year, how you've been working with doctors, and maybe share a story about that has really kind of shines a light on oh, okay, that's what Maria does, and that's the work that she does.
So I do mind and body coaching, and I'll tell you that maybe when people hear that, they're like, what on earth does that mean? So a lot of times people are like, do you do personal training? What is mindset coaching? And whether it's physical or mental, Michael, it's all about our self-awareness of where we are physically, as well as where we are mentally, emotionally. And the power of this work is that many of us are very conditioned, especially people in successful industries like doctors, right? They go through a lot of schooling. I was in finance, so I went through a lot of schooling, and there are certain expectations of us as professionals. But what happens is, as we go and as we satisfy the shoulds, the musts, that have tos, what starts happening is we start losing who we are. And through my personal journey and through working with clients, what I have realized is that really the Angelova Method, the mind and body coaching, which is self-mastery, truly teaching you how to be a leader from the inside out, how to be a self-master of your life, whether that's personal or professional, has profound implications also on your well-being. And this is what I do today. I work with people who want to take their life to the next level. People who are done with the performing and the achieving, and they have everything that maybe 10 years ago they were like, that's what I want, and now they have it. And there is still that internal void. There is that internal burnout and exhaustion of like keeping it all together all the time, taking care of everybody, accept yourself all the time, being there for everybody at the same time. And truthfully, your body is giving you messages all the time, that exhaustion, that tiredness, that going to bed when you're like, oh, I can't wait to sleep, but then you're tossing and turning and you can't shut down your mind. That's your system giving you feedback to like, hey, I need some attention, some personal attention for me. And really, in the past year, I have gotten the privilege to work with a lot of people in the healthcare and wellness space because, I'm in the wellness space too. We're the ones who care about people, who want to help others feel good. We are empaths. And sometimes there is a conflict of, well, I want to help somebody, but how about me? It feels selfish to take care of myself and to make space and time for myself. And what I teach people is not only theoretically, but practically how to make the change of embodying the change into their body and into their life. And that's really where the Angelova method is truly potent. It is practical work. It is you learn tools that help you self-regulate, but most importantly, you learn how to self-regulate your nervous system, the way that you think. You learn what are the stories that you have learned through societal conditionings, your family, community, going through medical school. What are those things that no longer serve you? And sometimes people would argue with me, well, Maria, my perfectionism has served me well. Has it? How are you feeling in body, mind, and spirit? Yes, everything is good in balance, right? Control in balance, perfectionism in balance, time management, we want balance. But if we have a misalignment with who we truly are, with how we want to live our life, with the values that we have, and what's on our calendar, that's a misalignment to us. And we start feeling that into our system, into our body.
So you work closely with physicians and other healthcare leaders every day. When you hear, or when your clients hear, and particularly physicians and those who work in with patients, when they hear the word mindset and, well, we need to care for patients, but without losing ourselves, it seems almost like they're repeating a platitude. What immediately comes to mind for you, and how do you address that?
So the thing, I think we're exposed to a lot of, I'm putting in quotation marks, exposed to a lot of, you should do the mindset work, you should do the coaching. And many people theoretically are like, okay, I kind of get it. I need to change something about the way I'm thinking. But very few people get on the side of embodying the work, which is actually practicing what they're learning. So when people say, well, people will get very defensive, Michael, when I say it's time to make time for yourself. They literally get angry with me.
Makes me kind of squirm in my chair a little bit. I'm like,
Yeah.
"Ah, okay, well, maybe that means therapy. Like I'll that's a good idea, but I don't have time for that. I'm
I
sure
don't
is what
have
a
time
lot of
for
people
this.
say.
Yes. And I do have to say, Michael, it is sad that frequently we get to the point of complete burnout before we make it a priority to take care of ourselves. And I'm
Mhm.
here to tell people is you don't have to burn out to start the work. The work, many people are afraid to face their emotions, and therapy for some people has a negative connotation. And once again, all of this is mindset and conditioning. And you know what? We start where you are. So we're not going to go from you not taking any time to yourself to starting tomorrow, you're not going to take any time for your patients and do all of the things for yourself. We will gradually create small habits. And what I love, Michael, is I teach people, let's start with something small and let's just tweak it and let's see how you feel. And we do that consistently, and the feedback will be like, wow, I can't believe that small tweak. Suddenly I'm sleeping better. Wow, I can't believe my neck is not as tense or my shoulders are not as tight. Now that incentivizes them and increases their curiosity to want to know more. Here is what I'll tell you, Michael. If you don't have an open mind to the work, I can make you believe in the work. You have to be willing to, and we have spoken in prior episodes about this. Physicians are very knowledge based professionals. So they want the evidence, they want the research. And again, this is about embodiment and feeling the work into your body. So you have to be willing. We know there is plenty of research on meditation and mindfulness and all of that. But again, we're not going after the theory, we're going after the embodiment or the practical implementation of the work. Here is something very important, Michael. You know how you said, well, when you hear that, I just get uncomfortable in my chair. What you're actually hearing is the response of your body telling you, ooh, this feels uncomfortable. That's fantastic. The fact, one, that you were aware of that, and two, that you were triggered by what I said. Triggers are amazing teachers. If right now I'm talking and you're going, ooh, that makes me happy, that makes me sad. There is a need that is coming into your head right now that is not getting satisfied, and you're looking for a way to meet that need through that trigger. So triggers are fabulous for us. So Michael, after this episode, I will encourage you to sit with this and be like, huh, why did I have such a reaction in my body to what Maria said? You can find golden nuggets there. If you learn to live like that, that's how we change. Literally, that's the work. We go, and when I trigger you, we see what shows up. Now, I trigger you in a place that's safe and a place that's loving. I'm there to ask you the uncomfortable questions and to also take that path along with you. Before we started the recording, I shared with you a recent testimonial from a client, and she told me, you changed my life. And my response to her was, I really did not. You changed your life because I only guided you. You did the work. I cannot do the work for you. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and one of my mentors and one of my favorite authors, he always says, you have to pay attention to the tension. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
sorry. Let me just stop that. That is, sorry. See, these are live recordings, everybody. I have pattern interrupts. Like what I was just going to say is I have to pay attention to those tensions because we can wear the Apple Watch and we can wear the Fitbit and we can have the Amazon Alexa reminders in our offices, but then what do? We ignore them. We ignore the tension that says, get up, take a breath, let's do some breath work. Let's do some, we're not paying attention to that tension. Instead, we'll just keep sitting. And what do I do? I do it too. We just sit down and we put our head down and we keep working harder. We keep seeing patients. We keep typing at the keyboard, wherever it is, whatever your lane is. Um, and for some of, I think the people listening I think that they are hearing, well, that's like putting on the oxygen mask first. Yeah, that's what I'll do. I'll put on my oxygen mask first, and then that's a good idea. Thanks for that. And then they move on. And what happens? Nothing changes. They
Just
just associate it with a platitude. And I think that the oxygen mask, it's a great metaphor, but it isn't that it's wrong. It's just that it's incomplete. And just like we say, doctors, you're worth more than you think you are from a monetary perspective, and incredibly overpaid and incredibly overworked. But I think from this side of the exam room, you don't need permission to rest. We talk a lot, we ask physicians in concierge medicine about, hey, how often are you asked to do pro bono work for family and friends? Like how
Mhm.
often do they come to you for free? And some of the stories are incredibly funny, and I even had a non-concierge medicine friend. She's like, "Oh yeah, I just tell them that I got a C in that class." And it's like tongue in cheek, but it's like I'm not really the expert you want to talk to about that. But, you don't need, as a physician, permission or a nurse to rest. You don't need permission to work on yourselves. And so often we log on, and I love the idea that somebody recently, I think it was at a conference you and I were at together, said, before I get up in the morning, I don't log on to Facebook or Instagram, all these social media, because I'm now letting them dictate how I
Yep,
feel,
that's
and
exactly
how I'm
right.
going to feel for the rest of the day. And so I think that we need more language that honors a physician's and healthcare clinician's responsibility and their humanity. And I like that's the work that you're doing, is you're doing work on their humanity without making one compete with the other. Because I think that there's a tension. It's like, well, the humanity side of my person, my body, my working on myself so that I can be a better clinician, I can be a better doctor, I can be a better nurse. I'll do that work eventually. And that's where most of us fall into. We ignore We ignore the symptoms until it's too late. And then what happens? Well, you know, you you get cancer. It's like, well, this
Yeah.
stuff is eating you up inside. So our next question for you, Maria, is why do you think so many physicians quietly believe that exhaustion is just part of the job and that asking for help somehow means they're a failure or that they have failed or that they're not good
Yeah.
enough?
Yeah, because that's how we have been conditioned, Mike. And I'll tell you, coming from a different industry, I had that same mindset. I come from Eastern Europe and I was taught you do your thing and you don't ask for help and you manage your life. You don't go around telling people about it, and that weighs on you. It is all conditioning, and it is conditioning that is pretty hard to break because why do most people go into medicine? They go into medicine because they love helping other people, right? Then they go into medicine, and what they're taught is you serve, you serve, you serve, you do, you do, you do. And they do that for how many years, right?
Hmm.
By the time they get into the workforce, some of them are probably like 30s, right? That's a lot of conditioning. And then if you go into the system, that's continuously reinforced there. You do that for another 10 years. That's consistent messaging and expectations for so many years. So to break apart from that has to be a very intentional breakup. And I think the very important part is that you have to choose to create that breakup. Like you mentioned something very important, Michael, about, getting up in the morning and getting on Facebook and letting, social media control your life. We are taught that the external world creates how we feel. And we continuously look at the external world to make us feel better, whether that's a promotion or your boss telling you you're doing a good job or, getting some kind of kudos or accolades. When that creates dependency on the external world, the magic of the work is when you start creating that internal resilience and happiness and fullness from the inside out. But there are very few people who are actually taught to do that. Most of us are conditioned to perform under pressure, to perform, 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 to push, 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 to take care of everything and everybody else before we pause and take care of ourselves. So, yes, you can wait till you fall apart and a medical condition hits you, or you can be intentional and say, you know what? No more. Like,
Yeah.
you are gifted you're gifted the talent of being a physician, not to burn out. And I think the other very important piece, Michael, is people look at it as I can take care of myself or I can be a great doctor. It is actually an and. And what I will tell you is 100% guarantee that when you take care of yourself, you will be a much better physician, spouse, friend, father, whatever role it is that you play, friend in life, because you will be self regulated, you will be rested, and you're going to live your life from a place of peace, abundance, and calm and presence versus rushing and busyness and pressure and performance. Can you even feel how these words feel different just when we say them out loud? They carry different energy. And that's energy, we absorb it and take it into our body and mind.
Yeah. Somebody yesterday, I think it was author Steve Cuss, was talking about managing anxiety. And he's
Mhm.
written a couple of great books about managing your expectations and the expectations of others and managing stress and family emotions and friendship emotions around the holidays. And I think that he does a lot more work with organizational leadership. So he's in the business space
Mhm.
more or less now and talks about, becoming anxiety aware from a leadership perspective. And that, for example, like social media is that, you know, it's amplifying our
Yeah.
emotions, and and then we think, when we see these things, what does the world need? And physicians are so guilty of this, especially on LinkedIn, for example, they see a controversial post or a post that they don't agree with or something in the health system and is broken. We're all victims, those types of things. And what does the, what does that tell us? It tells them and informs them, you know what? The world would be a better place if it had one more comment from you posted out there. And that just creates more stress for physicians, and it's creating this unmanaged anxiety and pressure, and that translates and walks itself right back into the exam room where you and I are. I'm not a
Yeah.
physician, but I am a patient, and I can tell within seconds that that physician is overworked, stressed, you know. So from Maria, from your work with clinicians, how do you see the impact of what you're doing, and maybe share a story about physician anxiety, especially in already, they're already in these high pressure roles.
So first, let's talk about anxiety real quick, because anxiety is that anticipation of the future and what if, what if, right? Something is going to happen, and I have to have the 500 what if scenarios just so that I can be perfectly prepared for what's going to happen. Now, the chance of actually any of these, because as humans, we usually go to the most dramatic, most it's not going to work out for me scenario, which is dreadful. It puts us into fight or flight, or our sympathetic nervous system. And when that happens, that is like the lion is coming after us, and our only goal right now is to escape the lion. So it shuts down our creativity, it shuts down our peripheral vision. There is only one goal. So, what the first thing we want to do is we want to return you to the present moment versus living in the in the future or in the past. What happens? Depression is usually associated with living in the past. Is so that you're present right here, right now. And what I mean by that is, okay, I could be sitting here right now and it looks like I'm doing nothing, but inside my head, I'm going, oh my gosh, I have to do this. And after this, I have that meeting. And did I prepare for that next meeting? And for tomorrow, I have to prepare a presentation. And now I need to go see this patient. And right? It looks like I'm doing nothing, but my entire system is on overdraw.
Yep.
So is returning you back to the present moment, making you aware of what you're creating, because most of us have this chaos into our head, but that's the only thing we know. We don't know that we have an option that can be, this noise can be silenced. I will tell you, for people like physicians who are go, 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 staying present without doing anything is very uncomfortable. I suggested to a physician just last week, I said, I would like for you to sit on your sofa for 5 minutes and do nothing. She goes, Maria, that's easy. I can just scroll through Netflix.
No, no way. I
I
can't
said,
do
no, 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 no,
that.
no. I said, I did not say Netflix. I said, you just sit quietly for 5 minutes. And every time your mind tries to think about something, you return to the present moment. She goes, well, that's very uncomfortable. Right. And that's okay. You start with 30 seconds, you start with 1 minute. But Michael, what starts happening is, in the beginning, I said this work is all about self awareness and self mastery. You start having these glimpses of like, wow, I do feel better after I do this, even for a minute. And then what happens? They're like, wow, I was not as snappy with my staff. When you
Mhm.
start doing the internal work and self reflection, I had another physician years ago. She was having staff issues. And we did some work, and she says, oh my gosh, she's like, do you know what the problem was? She's like, it was me, it was not my
Mhm.
staff.
Yeah.
Because again, we look for the external world to provide us what we need. When we have emotional deficiencies and we're not aware of what they are, we keep looking for all kinds of crazy ways. When I say crazy, we are emotionally unregulated to satisfy those needs. And we don't even know we're doing that. And when people look at us and they're like, what is up with her this morning? And it really has nothing to do with them. It has to, maybe I had a fight with my spouse, right? But I'm not aware of how that's showing up, like with my colleagues, with my staff, with my patients. Or I had another example, a physician, she works in the emergency room, she's a hospitalist. And I was explaining the example of something similar. You go in and the patient is in the emergency room and the family comes in. They're really freaked out, and now they're telling you what they read on Google and what you need to do because that's what Google tell them. And that is triggering her. And she's like, "Well, I am the doctor. You don't tell me what to do." And now she's getting defensive. Well, guess what? What the family is doing has nothing to do with the doctor. They're worried, they're stressed that their loved one right now I don't know, maybe may die, right? Or may have something serious going on for a long period of time that will impact their life. And they're like, they think they're being helpful by saying, this is what I read, this is what I'm doing. But the way we receive the information and see as humans, we think everything is about us. When you tell me something, and if I get triggered and I'm like, well, I can't believe Michael thinks that. Well, you're maybe telling me something about your family that had nothing to do with me. But now I made it about myself. Why? Because there is some kind of trigger that triggered an emotional deficit in me, and now I'm trying to meet it through the way I'm responding to you. So when you realize that our interaction with people is influenced by our own needs, oh my God, especially if you work in places like physicians who you work with, nurses and nurse practitioners and, staff and patients and the family of the patients. Oh my gosh, what kind of an impact is that going to have for you? And when you learn to self regulate and manage your nervous system and not lose your cool and instead being focused on being the amazing, badass doctor that you are, holy cow, how is that going to change you? How is that going to change the patient experience? How is that going to change the system? Because we think the system is going to change it, that's going to change our life. No. The
Yeah.
change is going to start by each and everyone's taking radical personal responsibility for our own life, for where we are. And that's going to have the trickle effect and impact the system. And like I fully believe that because working through with so many physicians, I see it. I see how their practices are impacted. I see how their families are impacted, how their relationships are impacted, how their community is impacted. This work works. And it starts
Yeah.
with you doing the work.
Yeah. And it's such an important thing. And I think that we think of fixing ourselves as like, okay, I'll go to a therapist for 6 months, or I'll do this for 3 weeks, or I'll read a book. And, we're both married individuals. And, I'm sure each of our respective partners would be like, it would benefit our marriages. I'm sure our spouses would say this about us, like, you should definitely go to counseling, and like you should do it all the time because it would help. It's like car maintenance. I hate to associate it with that, but we do need ongoing maintenance in order to keep our relationship, with our spouses, happy and healthy. And it's always going to go through rough patches, and we're always going to have disagreements, but working on yourself is not a sentence of guilt as a physician or as a practitioner. It's admitting that, yeah, you are tired. Maybe you're exhausted. Maybe you don't have everything figured out like everybody told you that you should. And, wearing that responsibility on your shoulders, that can wear anybody out. Nobody was meant to carry that burden in that way. And then also, do it for everybody at all times. And then on top of that, work in a model or a system or, a practice that doesn't reward you for it. And, money is I like this in association with this conversation today, because it was somebody years ago, he said, or maybe it was she said, money can't buy happiness, but what it does buy you is options. And so for many physicians, you're looking for the options to kind of cherry pick and put into your work, whether it's, oh, you know what, maybe I should go see a professional therapist, or maybe I should hire an organizational psychologist to come into our business and help us to improve our culture, help us to improve what unhealthy mindsets we have about each
Yeah.
other, or worse yet, what unhealthy mindsets does your practice or do you as a physician or your staff have about your customer, or which is your patients? Because I can tell you that plenty of the practices that I've walked into with my kids, my mother, my father, myself, there are some unhealthy mindsets that they have about me, and equally shared, I have about them too. And so it's
Yeah.
not fair that we're walking into this, room with all of this invisible baggage that we cart into the exam room or into the waiting room lobby. And it's like, all right, I've carried all this stuff and I have some expectations that I know are not going to get, you know, but let's see how we can best work together. So the idea of emotional clarity and healthy differentiation comes up a lot in your work. How do you help physicians and healthcare practitioners build on what they're doing already, but build these skills to, say it's okay to be emotionally vulnerable. It's okay to, you know, unpack some of these uncomfortable things, and that this isn't an overnight fix. It's not something that's going to get fixed in 6 months. This is something that you have to keep working on yourself. You might be 25, you might be 75. You're going to have to, unfortunately, work on yourself your whole life.
I would say fortunately, because I will tell you, I've been exposed to this type of work personally for myself since 2017. And this work, I mean, has changed my life in such a profound way personally, which is something else that's very different about the way I coach. Like I said, it's very practical, and everything I teach you is something that I've gone through, right? It's not I've read a book or listened to a podcast and now let me teach it to you now. It's what I have used to personally. I was very stressed, I was very anxious, anxiety attacks, and to take that off. Um I shared with you a recent testimonial. I had a client who had history of heavy trauma. She worked through that. She had a history of self-harm, substance abuse, lost identity into the trauma. And we worked through that and helped her step into a new identity. All of the work is, again, turning that mirror, looking into yourself and saying, where in my life are there places that I don't like the results that I'm seeing? That can be your practice, that can be in your family, right? And then taking that mask off. When you were talking about in the beginning of this question, when you started talking about, showing up and you seem like you have it all together, but like behind the mask, you're like, man, I'm exhausted. You're human. You could be a physician, but you're still a human being and a caring human being who is in a very stressful job, who has a lot of responsibility. And if you're a doctor, usually the responsibility doesn't stop the medical responsibility, right? You have your neighbor, something hurts, they'll call you. You have a friend, something hurts, they'll call you. And you're looked up as like, you've got it all together. And you know what? It's okay to say, you know what? I am taking 30 minutes for myself. And that's it. It's okay to say, you know what? I can use some help. It doesn't mean you're weak, because see, that's the meaning we assign for I need help. That means I can't do it by myself. That means I'm dependent. That means whatever other meaning you want to assign to that. What if you change the story and say, I need help? That's great. I'm recognizing that because I'm growing. It's not that I'm independent. I'm willing to be open minded and curious to evolve into the next version of myself, to return to who I am, to take off the mask. Michael, taking off the mask requires a lot of courage. For many of us, it is much easier to hold on to the mask because that's our safety, right? The real us is hidden behind the mask. And when you take off the mask and when you show vulnerability and emotions, and when the world sees the real you, that is such authentic power and presence that you can't even imagine. That is so much more potent than wearing a mask. That is your authentic power, your authenticity, who you're meant to be. That is high vibrational. That feels good into your body, that feels good into your nervous system. It is not pretending. Pretending, think about an example of telling a lie to somebody, Michael, right? And now you have to maintain the story so the lie doesn't come out. That can carry a lot of tension. Oh my gosh, I have to make sure, it could be something as simple as I don't want to go to dinner because I told you I have I don't know, a Zoom call. And then you find out that actually, I don't know, I went to the movies with some other friend. But if I have to keep covering up for that lie to make it sound right, that is a lot of tension that I'm carrying into my body. And that lie creates patterns, coping patterns and mechanism in me to keep up with the lie. It's the same thing with the mask. We don't do it intentionally. It's once again conditioning. Many of us don't even understand we're wearing a mask. I had no idea I was wearing a mask because I looked around and everybody around me was stressed and exhausted and rushing. And I just thought, well, that's what success means. It does not.
Yeah.
It does not.
Success is like the duck on the water. Everything's fine above the surface of the water, but underneath, those little legs are moving and those gears are turning. And I think about, the metaphor of the mask a little bit because as a natural overthinker, which is a great advantage, but it's also a great weakness of mine. And that is, we put on our mask to help the people that are closest to us, like our kids or our spouse, whoever it might be, friend we're traveling with. And like, but then what happens? We just sit there with our masks on. Like, it's not like those things are kind of tethered to a certain part of the airline. And then we just kind of put our heads between our knees and like hope for the best, like if you've ever been in those terrible situations. Um, but that metaphor, it's like what happens after you take off the mask? Like, okay, well, we made it through. How can we learn from this? How can we move forward? And so our final couple of questions for Maria are what kind of transformation have you seen in physicians experience when they start managing mindsets, their anxiety, instead of just reacting to it? Tell us a couple of stories that if you were to like embody your work, embody the conversations and experiences that physicians that you're working with right now over the last couple of years have had, they're just like, you know what? That is the story that makes it all worth it.
So one of the stories which just pops to mind right now is procrastination, the state of busy. These are self-sabotaging patterns, right? And there are ways that we stay safe behind them, right? I can't do this because I'm too busy. And I was working with a healthcare practitioner, and she had been sitting on launching her own program for several years. And it was, she's too busy. She's a mom. She has a job. She's teaching at the university. She's wearing many different hats. She's a caregiver to her elderly parents and so forth. Within 3 months, she launched her program. Within 3 months, she started bringing revenue into the program. And I think about within 6 months, her program became a first line of defense for in a very big organization for how organizations are using the work that she's offering for patients.
Mm.
So, again, when we think of, oh, it's selfish for me to do that work, can you see how that work is, oh my gosh, like she's impacting the world globally now because of something that, she made it a priority to create. She got out of her own way, really, because she had to come up with her new structure and priority and schedule to create something that she had been sitting on for a long time. And now she's impacting the world.
But
Like,
it's not just one of, I guarantee if you were like, and you can share with it as well. Like we all sit down for TED Talks and we all sit down and listen to like, how did they do it? Like,
mhm.
what's the secret sauce of their success? I'm I'm willing to, bet that she probably took 5 minutes on the couch, during that 6 month period while it was building and growing. And she did it again. And then she probably did some therapy and maybe she did, a workout class or a yoga, whatever it might have been. Like, I'm
Yeah.
sure that it wasn't just, okay, I worked on myself and then I went and started something amazing.
Well, so here is, you want me to tell you a big secret, Michael? One of our biggest powers, do you know what it is? It's
I do not.
it's focus. And what a lot of busy people lack is focus. Now, focus goes hand in hand with a regulated nervous system. The example that I used before of the lion chasing us, right? And your only goal is like, run from the lion. Well, if you're constantly running from the lion, that's where your focus goes. You can focus on creating. You can focus on, doing things like hobbies and things that nurture you, right? Like for her creating that course where she loves the work, she wants to spread the work with the world. How does she do it? How does she integrate other practitioners? And yes, it wasn't just like I'll sit down and do it, but we worked on something that we work with pretty much all clients: boundaries, time management. I mean, this sounds so basic, but like time management and how to be the master. That's another feedback from another client. She said, I am the master of my calendar versus being at its mercy. How powerful
Wow.
is that, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I teach people basic things such as like pull your calendar and look at everything that's on there that is not bringing you joy, not making you feel good. That is telling you something. Now we just go, well, just another year and then I'll manage, and just another year and just another year and just another year and the time goes and life passes us by. Like, what are we waiting for, people? Like, every day is a gift. Like, make the most out of it. Live it with energy and life. And that's another scenario, right? That happens all the time. People report a huge difference in how they feel, in how they're not, how they can self-regulate. Like, they're not snappy, they're not reactive, but they just, we create little tools. Some of them are silly to, like, oh wow, self-awareness. I call it going down the rabbit hole. I'm going down the rabbit hole. Let me restore myself to baseline so that I can focus, again, one of our human powers, and stay on track with what I'm doing. So I think overall impact on well-being, overall impact on nervous system. People sleep better, people get things done, people don't procrastinate. um and yeah, it's it's so potent, it's so powerful, and again, it's self-reflective. It's not rocket science. It's actually, that's another feedback, Michael. People would say this is so basic, yet it is so challenging to implement because we're breaking down stories that we've had for, 30, 40, 50 years. We are
Yeah.
rewriting stories, stepping into new identity.
Well, I knew from personal, uh, from a personal story, and I think I've only shared this, I'll share this with the podcast and you, and I think I've only shared this with my wife. I was like, you know, when I went to counseling last year, like a telehealth type of therapy,
Mhm.
and worked on myself. It was the roughest. I mean, it was like I didn't enjoy it. There was nothing good about it. And it was, I mean, yes, there were
Oh,
good things that came out of it, right?
yeah.
But it's like it hurts to do the work, right? Like you get teary and you get emotional and you get mad and you get like, "Arr." And I remember it was our very first visit. He asked the question. He's like, "So what's your very first memory, very first like ever as a child, as a baby? What's your number one memory?" And I was like, "Holy moly, like coming in hot." And and even then, there's still, you bring in that baggage of like, there's emotion tied to that memory, and then all the things that go with that. And then, in therapy sessions, you end up talking more
Yeah.
because it's like, you just need to get all that garbage out, whether it's therapy or whether it's psychologists or whether it's mindset work or whether it's just relaxing and, you know, taking that 5 minutes. But um, two things before we kind of wrap up here. I think that there's been so much that we've covered today, but walk us through what you would tell a physician if they're listening, or what you would tell a physician sitting in front of you about that 5 minute moment. Because to me, that's something that has stuck in my mind of like, I can do that. That's a nugget. That's a
Yeah.
doable goal. I can give you 5 minutes today, or I'm not you, but I can give myself five
There we
minutes
go.
today. So what does that mean? What am I supposed to do when, I looked up the other day for my daughter. She wanted a Kindle or an iPad and for college, right?
Mhm.
And it was like, well, the problem with the Kindle is it can't do everything. But the problem with the iPad is it can do everything. And if you want focus, you go with the Kindle because you won't be notified and
Corrected.
distracted or tempted to go on these other apps, which you will if you have access to them.
Yeah.
So, talk to us about what you would tell someone in that 5 minutes. How should they approach it? Uh, you know, Somebody in college, I remember telling me, he's like, sometimes the only place I feel alone is, when I'm in the shower, right? Like it's kind of like,
Perfect.
it's
Yeah.
like, oh my goodness. Yeah, like and for many people, we have busy responsibilities. We have kids, and it's like,
You
what
know
do we
what?
do?
If the
And now
shower,
there's
yeah.
conversations about prostate cancer and men sitting on the toilet too long because they're scrolling on their phones, right? And
Now,
it's
yeah.
the whole thing. I mean, it just never ends. So I'll let you kind of take the floor with this 5 minutes and tell them what to do or how to approach it.
So you know what? If your 5 minutes is in the shower, that's fantastic. If your 5 minutes is while you're walking or while you're sitting or whatever it is that you're enjoying doing, then that's your thing. And I would start, 5 minutes actually sounds like a really short time, Michael, but for somebody who has never done that, five
That's a
minutes is going
long
to,
time.
yeah, it's going to feel like 5 hours. So what I would suggest is start with 1 minute, 60 seconds. And here is the way I started it, Michael, because I would take my phone and I would put the stopwatch, right? And I would literally set it up for 60 seconds. And I would sit facing the window and the only thing I will do is breathe and be present right here, right now. What does that mean? If I take a breath and I go, oh, I have to call Michael after this. Oh, so that's a distraction. No, Maria. And that's normal. So you guys know this is normal if when it happens to you. Just acknowledge it and return back to, I'm going to return to my breath. And you're going to see your brain is now going to go, oh, what are we going to have for dinner tonight? Okay. I acknowledge that, return back to the breath. And your mind will keep going that. Your only job is to return to the present moment and your breath. So, how you can do that? I said you can do that while you do an activity. My favorite one is when I make my cup of tea. I am super present and making the cup of tea. I, pour the water in. I hear how the water pours in. I turn it on and I hear how the bubbles are. Like I associate what's happening to my senses. And as the water is bubbling, I look at the bubbles. I hear the bubbles. Maybe I put my hands, don't touch it, but like put it around and I feel the warmth, right? And if my mind goes, oh, you have a conference call after that, I go, thank you, mind. But right now we're focusing on making that cup of tea. And I return to making the cup of tea. And then I take my tea bag and I smell it. And then I put it in. And then as I pour the water. See, right now, some of the listeners might be like, oh my God, get to the point. That's the
Yeah.
whole point. You're present into the moment. That's it. It is as simple as that. And I guarantee you, do it for 1 minute, do it consistently. I guarantee you're going to start feeling a difference into how you feel.
And I think it's some of it's about starting maybe a routine or adding into a
Yeah.
routine. Because I have a
Yeah.
similar routine in the mornings where it's really become a dominant, like I need to have that time in the
Yeah.
morning.
Yeah.
And I don't think it wasn't until my wife pointed it out, like, yeah, you kind of get up early and you have this whole routine. And I didn't even really realize that it was a routine, but now I enjoy it. Like I have to start my day that way or else it just doesn't feel right.
See,
Yeah. And
you're
and then
starting to feel the difference.
yeah, and when that, you know, I could I have a drawer of Post-its, like empty Post-its with pens right near it.
Mhm.
And when I'm waiting for the coffee to be made and I'm getting, the to-go container ready for the day, which is part of that routine, is filling that up, that I take with me for the rest of the day. So I remember the routine just now is when those ideas come up, like, okay, I have to go get light bulbs. Like my daughter's light is out in her room right now. It's like, okay, I will take that post-it note and essentially, I don't know what's the correct word for it, but like I've dropped that. I
Yeah,
don't need to
you
think
can.
about it
That's kind of like
anymore.
journaling, right? That's kind of like journaling. You're emptying your what's in your head on paper, so it's creating more space in your head for other things. Yeah.
And then coming back to the
Yeah,
activity or
to the
the root,
activity in
coming
the
back to
present moment.
this to the center, coming
Yeah.
back to being present.
And I would tell you if you can go 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and for this one, I would say you want to slow down, like sit down or do it first thing in bed, is try to be present and feel the space around you. Like feel how you're part of the bigger space. And the space around you is just like empty and light and fluffy, and you're just there. You're just present. It is a game changer, Michael. It is so simple. And I would say if you can start your day that way instead of checking your emails or Facebook or social media or whatever, it's going to be a game changer for how your day goes. Exactly to what you just described, Michael.
Yeah. Well, and some people associate the exercise getting up early in the morning, or maybe it's late at night, working. Some people want to work out in the gym late at night in their basement, and they're like, this is church for me. Like I get so much out of my life because I spend this time on myself. And
Yeah.
and they've got four kids and a busy life and busy career and all these different things. And I'll say this to the physicians listening, but your next question is how do we get connected? What are you doing? What's coming up for you in the next quarter, in the new year, as well as in the summer? What are you looking forward to? But for the physicians listening, just remember this. Yeah, your job is hard. And so many people are going to, especially your colleagues, are going to excuse the problems away of like, well, that's what you signed up for, like that's what you're supposed to do. You're a physician of all things. You don't get to do those things anymore. And I'll say this from the physicians that have had very meaningful moments with me in their life. And I think of one physician here in Georgia, and he's like, look, if I'm going mountain biking or kayaking with my friends or my family, like I'm off the clock for you, and it wasn't talking to me personally, but he was, talking to his patients on Facebook. He's like, look, I need my own time. And I'm not apologizing for it. I'm not being a jerk about it, but I need that time too to recharge my batteries because he didn't sign up or she didn't sign up or you didn't sign up for easy when you became a physician. You signed up for worthwhile. So Maria, um, what are you excited about the new year? How do people connect with you? What are you doing? And what's the next step I should take as a physician or a clinician or a practitioner listening that's like, I think I want to learn more. I think I want to work with Maria. I think I could be friends with her.
Yeah. Well, first of all, let's continue building that tribe of like-minded professionals. You know, Michael, I'm a huge supporter of that. So I would absolutely love to connect with anybody who is listening to this and get to know you. What I'm excited about. So in January, I'm launching a brand new program called the Mind Body Rebellion. Super excited about it. It is the culmination of a lot of self work and working with professionals and seeing how the work can be done best so you can get the best and fastest results. Like I said, the work is very practical and actionable. So we're not going to sit there and learn a bunch of theory about the brain. We're going to take real life and break it down. And you know what? I want to go back to something you said, Michael. You said, your work is hard. I would say let's rewrite that story and let's make your work fun and fulfilling and purposeful and exciting. And let's ditch the Sunday blues and let's make you excited on Sunday that you'll be going and doing something that you love and impacting lives. That's the energy we want to go from. Next year, I don't know the location yet, but for sure a retreat coming up. The last retreat in Bulgaria last year was absolutely fabulous and powerful. Retreat is something I'm very excited to do because it's a week long, but it's super intense. We go super deep and it's like speeding up through the work in a very relaxing, chill, cozy, safe, and loving environment with other amazing people. And yeah, so I'm excited to continue creating impact with like-minded people and making a dent into how physicians, healthcare professionals feel and impacting the healthcare system, which as we all know, it's not working neither for patients, not nor for providers. So really creating impact one person at a time.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
how would I go about connecting with you? I'll put some of the links in the show notes, but what's your website or social media channels?
So website is rebelliousstudio.com. The new program is rebelliousstudio.com/mindbodyrebellion. And I'll give you guys my cell phone. The best way is honestly to text me is 678-358-5700. And what else? My email?
Uh, yeah, I mean, we'll put it in the show notes. But
Okay.
yeah, go ahead and include your email if you'd like your business
It's
email.
Maria, Maria, at rebelliousstudio.com.
Great. Well, as we wrap up today, here's some summary kind of a quiet takeaway is take that 5 minutes, take the 1 minute. Maybe it's a part of your routine through the day. Maybe it's a midday routine of just taking a walk, getting away, not putting in the earplugs or what is it?
AirPods.
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 Uh, and maybe it's 5 minutes in the morning, maybe it's 2 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour and a half at night. What many physicians I think are experiencing right now isn't a personal failure. It's tension. And tension, when we pay attention instead of silencing it, often points to something important to us that we need to address beneath the surface. Because for you listening, it's not just about the hours that you've worked that have piled up or the schedule that you have to approach tomorrow. It's often a result of carrying so much responsibility without real clarity and purpose for from the past. And we want you to have more margin in your life. And Maria wants you to have, be able to see patients, but without restriction, without boundaries. And over time, even the most dedicated physicians can start to feel anxious. You're not alone, disconnected, stuck without exactly knowing why. And I think what we've unpacked today with Maria Angelova is the idea that sustainable care requires something deeper than just endurance. It requires an awareness, and it requires a certain amount of leadership and character, and I would say even bravery, as
Mhm.
Maria's kind of talked about understanding ourselves, not just performance expectations about what you got to do tomorrow or who you got to see or all these different things. Anxiety doesn't mean something's wrong with you. It often is telling a story that, hey, something's just out of alignment here, as she said. And so you don't have to stop caring. You don't have to walk away. You don't have to stop what you're doing. And you don't have to carry it all alone. So, Maria, thank you for your time today. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for the work that you're doing for doctors, for practitioners, for those who are working in the healthcare sector. And sometimes, as you've shared, the most courageous step forward is choosing to lead yourself well so that you can continue to serve others with clarity, purpose, wisdom, and have something to say to your family or your friends at the end of the day that, hey, today was a good day.
Yeah. Michael, thank you so much for your time and for the opportunity to be here with you again today. And I wish you and everybody listening only the very best.
Thank you.